We always had a large garden when I was growing up. We grew just about every kind of vegetable in it that would grow in Vermont short growing season. Dad always said we had, 8 months of winter and 4 months of late fall. And once I got old enough to tote a gun, it was my job to serve up hot lead to any varmint that crossed the boundaries into our garden. It was a constant battle, and sometimes it was hard to tell the winners from the losers. Back in, I think it was 68, I was 10 years old. I wasn't really shooting much yet. I had a BB gun, but he didn't let me have a real weapon. And we had this big garden, about probably a quarter of an acre down behind our backyard there, down by the railroad fence in the gully. And by about mid-July, we had the woodchuck equivalent of Ma, Pa, and the kids eating everything in that garden, except the weeds. They wouldn't touch the weeds. Dad said they did it on purpose. The first line of defense was scarecrows. So I'm following out to the garden, and he's putting up some scarecrows. He's pounding in one. It's got on a old faded yellow sundress and an old Easter bonnet, and he's putting it up, and I said, Dad, how scarecrows going to do us any good? We don't have any problems with crows. And he looks at me, he says, nobody likes a wise ass boy. He says, what I'm going to do, you see, is I'm going to get these woodchucks scared of people, and then these scarecrows will work just fine. He says, you've got to be smart enough woodchuck to outfox them. Well, apparently, nobody had told the woodchucks that my dad was smarter than he was. Because he started taking pot shots at him from the tool shed in the side porch with a shotgun, but it was just out of effective range. So all it did was train the woodchucks to be scared of the people shooting at them from the tool shed in the side porch. They was quite comfortable and enjoyed the ones that was planted permanently in the garden. Well, his next line of defense he tried was psychological warfare. I followed him out there, and he's got another stake, and he's pounding the stake in. I said, what you doing now? He said, you'll see what I'm doing. And he pounds in a stake, and he runs out an extension cord, and he brings out an old transistor radio, and he hangs it on the stake there, and he plugs it in, puts an old sap bucket over it, keep the rain off it, and then he tunes it right into the local rock and roll station. He says, if this long-haired hippie music don't drive him nuts, he says, I don't know what will. And I had to agree with his technique here because I'd seen what the music had done to him. Just a couple weeks before, my sister's non-stop playing of the Rolling Stones' I Can't Get No Satisfaction drove him so crazy he ripped it off the record player, stepped out on the side porch, and launched it right out into the side cow pasture. Well, psychological warfare did not work, and as a matter of fact, I think the woodchucks kind of liked it. I could almost now start to imagine them out there, in the evenings and stuff, twisting the chubby checker, bopping along to the Beatles. And secretly, I was starting to root for the woodchucks. There was some vegetables on the eating list that I wasn't real fond of, like, eggplant and horseradish and stuff. Well, the battle culminated later on that summer in August with the pumping out of our septic tank. Dad had a truck come in and he pumped out the septic tank, and he got done and he had 2 5-gallon buckets of sewage that he had bailed out of the distribution box. And he's walking down towards the garden with it, and I'm following along behind him trying to stay upwind. And I said, Dad, what are you going to do with that? And he says, I'll show you what I'm going to do with this. And he goes down to the garden off the side where one of the woodchuck's burrows is. He sets down the bucket and he dumps it right down that woodchuck's burrow. He says, that's what I'm going to do with that. And he's chuckling, and he picks up the other bucket and he says, this ought to fix their little red wagon. And he starts to pour that second one down. And when he did, the wettest, stinkiest, meanest woodchuck came blasting out of that hole like it was a missile silo and headed right for my old man. He kind of backpedaled and fell down and spilled most of what was left right in his lap. But he bounded right up and he was cussing and swearing. And of course, my limited cussing vocabulary at the time, I made a mental note to try to remember those for later use. And I quickly, of course, ran up the ladder on the swing set right there onto the slide, onto the chute. And then I watched my dad go hand to paw with this crazed woodchuck. It was the bucket that saved him. He used it deftly and with great skill to fend off the crazed creature. Unfortunately, he paid a price because he was flailing what was left in the bucket all over him. Finally, the woodchuck broke off the attack and headed for the gully with my old man running after it with the bucket saying, "Come back and fight like a man." And he heaved the bucket after it as it went down a secondary den entrance. I slid down the chute there. My dad come staggering out of the gully, and you could almost see the stench wafting off of him. And he says, "Son of a bitch, I never seen a woodchuck attack a person unprovoked like that." I said, "Unprovoked? You started it." And he looked at me and he said, "Nobody likes a wise ass boy." Well, I figured it'd be best to skedaddle for the house right then. And as I started to go up there, I hear this tinny music playing from underneath that sap bucket, and I swear to God it was playing "I Can't Get No Satisfaction."